time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Good evening, my name is Raj Amir, and this is one of the special Requisite 9 transmissions. We put these out so everyone can view them live every now and then. Unfortunately, each time I put one of these out, it never brings me any satisfaction because the news I tend to bring is deeply disturbing, and this time it is the same. It's no different. The Labour Party, as we all now know, are proven racists. They have covered up anti-Semitism in the party, in the first instance by denying it, then by having their own special cover-up inquiry, and then finally, after being reported to the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Remember, this is not something that they willingly brought about. They were investigated, and having been investigated, this is the main opposition party in this country, have been found to be racist anti-Semites, covering up the abuse of Jewish people in this country. Because that's what fundamentally anti-Semitism in the UK is. It's the abuse of Jewish people. A number of weeks ago, I brought to attention how the Elbit factory in Oldham had been viciously attacked by a mob. It was reported in the media at the time as a protest. Tens of thousands of pounds of criminal damage was done, and the attack was against a Jewish-owned factory. Even though this factory had recently won a £100 million plus Ministry of Defence contract and brought much needed jobs and status to a town on its knees, the Labour Party run council and all of its MPs sat back silently at this vicious attack. The local press presented it as a protest. And sure enough, if it hadn't been for some brave whistleblowers from within the Labour Party, from within the council, we would never have known what we now know. One of the protesters, one of those who stood outside and created a climate encouraging what was then to follow, was none other than someone who sits at the Labour Party high table. That is the picture I put up at the beginning, and I think I want to share this with you. This is Debbie Abrahams prior to a 2019 general election. Debbie Abrahams is joined by a number of prominent Muslim councillors. On the end, the man who sits on the end is Imran Yusuf. Imran Yusuf, at this point, was not a Labour Party councillor or even a candidate in any way in Oldham. Yet here he is, sat at the high table of the Labour Party in Oldham. Imran Yusuf, unfortunately, for the Labour Party, has been exposed for his role in the protests at Elbit factory. And only after being exposed for his role, the Labour Party knew about this before we broadcast it. But it was only after the public outrage, so much for lessons learnt, Sir KEIR STARMER. Angela Rayner, also an Oldham MP. Only after we exposed it did the Labour Party suspend this individual. And even then, the local press have failed to report on any of it. Anti-Semitism in the Labour Party was real, and it must never be allowed to return. I'm not sure about it being past tense somehow, do you? It is real, and it is still here and thriving, particularly in a town such as ours. This is the disgraceful reporter at the Oldham Times, Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson would have known, any reporter worth his salt would have known, who was involved in the protest. Yet Nick Jackson, like his compatriot Jennifer Williams at the Manchester Evening News, have all failed to report on Labour Party's links to this protest and to this anti-Semitic attack. Here is the Oldham Times Facebook. Again, the reference is as protests. And you'll notice the Elbit Ferranti factory in Waterhead. Ferranti has a long history in this town, a proud history in this town. Tens of thousands of people worked in the Ferranti factories in this town. This council sits back silently whilst this factory is attacked in an anti-Semitic fashion. The red, the symbolism of the red, the smashing of the glass, all of it was intentional, and it was to scare not just those who worked in this factory, but it was a message sent out by the protesters outside as to who controlled this town. And predictably, this man, this is Jeremy M.T. Sutcliffe. He was an ex-Labour councillor. He was Jim McMahon MP's agent. Immediately on the offensive. Jeremy, did you know then the associations? You did, didn't you, Jeremy? I suspect you knew straight away, and you'd been sent out. Like you are, like the lapdog you are. I wonder how many actually were Oldham as well, Jeremy. Front and centre is Mr. Imran Yusuf. Here he is, a member of the Labour Party high table in Oldham. Cartel-controlled high table in St Mary's. The very same St Mary's that rescued Debbie Abrahams after she was trounced in 7 of the 9 wards in the recent general election. Elbit out of Oldham. And this is essentially what it's to do with. Elbit produce software, hardware that are used by the Israeli army. Now, whether we like it or not, this is a legal factory in a town with with high rates of unemployment, and 2 prominent MPs in Debbie Abrahams and Jim McMahon who have strong relationships in the Muslim community. Why are they silent? Why, if they believe that Elbit should be shut down, why aren't they campaigning in Parliament on behalf of the Muslim community in Oldham? It's because they're playing both sides. On one side, they are pro-Israeli, and on the inside, whilst they sit down and have their nice samosas, they don't say a word to the anti-Semitism that is rife all around them. These are the real racists. Here is Mr. Yusuf, busy evening campaigning in St Mary's ward. You can see him there, along with the other councillor there on the end. Look at them. Look at the absence. Look at the absence of diversity. Anyone doubt the cartels? Look at the absence of diversity. Continued. Look at the absence of diversity. And here they are, hobnobbing at some event for Rebecca Long Bailey. Remember, Rebecca Long Bailey was suspended and thrown out of her position within weeks by Keir Starmer for anti-Semitism. Yet here is a councillor with a direct link to Debbie Abrahams, with direct associations with Jim McMahon, and they tried to cover it up. And it is only after we exposed it, not the local press that were complicit in the cover-up, only after we exposed it and we collectively were outraged, have they suspended him. But news is coming through now that Mr. Imran Yusuf still has powerful friends in the Labour Party. And these powerful friends are hoping they can smooth things over in his imminent hearing. That's right. Smooth things over. That's where we exposed it. Remember where we exposed it? It is a disgrace what these people are doing. They have been found guilty of horrific cases of anti-Semitism. These people want to lead our country and they hate Jewish people. And here they are attacking a Jewish factory, and the white politicians sit by silently. Not a word of condemnation. Where is your outrage, Debbie Abrahams? Where is your outrage, Jim McMahon, Angela Rayner? You're all Oldham politicians. The leader of Oldham Council, Sean Fielding, has been asked. He refuses to comment. A legitimate business in this town is attacked, and the councillor in charge, the MPs in charge, refuse to condemn what's took place. How can any Jewish person feel safe? How? Unfortunately for Mr. Imran Yusuf, this isn't going to save you now, is it, Imran? Look at the dates. Oh, by the way, the lad he's in that picture with is he's called Raheem. He's a friend of mine, Raheem, actually. But he's the older brother of the lad who runs the Greengate Trust, that the gangster Irish Simi is now doing whatever they're doing on their Let's Save Yemen nonsense. No, they're not saving Yemen. But here is Imran Yusuf. Remember the Labour Party councillor in Manchester that got suspended last week for going to Pakistan during lockdown, where he attended a wedding? Well, here is Mr. Imran Yusuf. Look at the dates. 12th of December, 7th of November. He's in Pakistan on a jaunt with his mates. In Pakistan on a jaunt with his mates. Oldham has been in a COVID crisis. And this lad is in Pakistan on a jaunt with his pals. And he wants to be your councillor. And not only does he want to be a councillor, he's endorsed by Jim McMahon and Debbie Abrahams. Angela Rayner. None of them have publicly condemned the attack on the Elbit factory. How is that acceptable for a party found guilty of anti-Semitism? How is that acceptable? Yeah, you can see there's no dispute. You won't be able to dispute it at all. In November, at the height of COVID in Greater Manchester, the want-to-be councillor for St Mary's, Mr. Imran Yusuf, was on a jaunt in Pakistan. What sort of leadership does that demonstrate? A man who's caught red-handed at an anti-Semitic rally, and not anti-Semitic by my definition, anti-Semitic by Labour's own definition. And now he's been exposed for going on holiday to Pakistan during the height of COVID, and he wants to represent an area that is one of the worst hit neighbourhoods in the country. It is a disgrace. Labour's own definition of anti-Semitism prohibits this. And guess what Jim McMahon has been doing? Reported to all of you. Last week was Neil Wilby, that malicious blogger who has been reported to the police for his fabricated, false, malicious allegations that I am a police informant in his attempt to have me attacked by his gangster associates. So much so, he likes to signpost people to where I live. Well, Neil Wilby last week revealed that Jim McMahon had reported me for anti-Semitism. This man has been harassing me maliciously for over 5 years. And the consequence of that is he's falsely gone to the police, he's gone to the Serious Fraud Squad, he's gone to the National Crime Agency, he's gone everywhere he can to try and have me arrested because I've exposed him and his relationship with the cartels. I've exposed him and his secret funding of mosques. I've exposed him and his reliant on a cartel-controlled postal vote. And I've exposed him because of his involvement in using the funeral of Lee Rigby to cover news of growing gangs. And having failed to have me arrested or silenced at every level of government possible, he's now reported me to Facebook for anti-Semitism. Here, Jim, take a look at this. Facebook removed 4 of my posts. Within 10 minutes, they were all back up. There was absolutely nothing anti-Semitic about anything I've ever said, because I'm not the racist and I'm not an anti-Semite. Mr. Imran Yusuf, your would-be counsellor, though isn't he? And the post McMahon had reported was my post where I specifically targeted Jim McMahon and his silence on anti-Semitism, of how he sits in restaurants and mosques nibbling samosas with people with open anti-Semitic views and opinions. And he accused me of being the anti-Semite. Well, unfortunately, it's not me that's the anti-Semite. The anti-Semite here is the Labour Party. Once again, the anti-Semite here is Mr. Imran Yusuf out protesting, and again, not my definition of anti-Semitism, Sir KEIR STARMER, your Labour Party's definition of anti-Semitism. And why is it that if you had nothing to hide, if you had learnt lessons of the past, if the Labour Party had learnt lessons of the past, why did they hide Mr. Imran Yusuf's role? And why did they fail to suspend him until after I had released the information given to me by members of the Labour Party, too scared to report it for fear of being attacked and harassed? This Labour Party in Oldham is crooked, cartel-controlled, crooked. Anti-Semites, racists, heroin dealers, getaway drivers, gunslingers, you name it, they have it. And in the middle of all of this, the few Jewish people in our town are petrified that the leaders in this town remain silent whilst Jewish businesses have their windows smashed in a sinister reenactment of events during Nazi Germany. Labour Party. Who can vote for the Labour Party in this town? Well, the only people left to vote for the Labour Party in this town is the bloc Muslim vote.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.